is on page 589 and talks about calculating the value of an inventory. You must calculate the value of your inventory when you purchase insurance, pay taxes, or compute the worth of your business. The average cost method is one way of calculating the value of an inventory. Because the cost of incoming items may change, you calculate the value of your inventory based on the average cost of goods you received. Okay? Stuff like if all of a sudden a fire breaks out, a spark happens in Dennis's shop and burns it to the ground. We got to figure out how much that's going to cost. Okay? Because the insurance company wants to know that. They want to know, what did you lose? And if you know your inventory and if it's up to date, then you could figure out the average cost of it.
Like you lose your dog. Is that like in this inventory then too?
Your dog?
Yeah.
Like if the pet shop burned down and you lost all your animals.
Well, that would be part of their, because it's their business, but if it's your own dog in there,
Yeah.
do you inventory your dog?
Maybe he does.
At a pet store, it would be inventory, because that is what they sell. But if it's your own personal dog, then that would not be part of your inventory. But at a pet shop, absolutely. Okay, so to figure out the inventory value, you take the average cost per unit and multiply by the number on hand. Okay? That's what you would do. That's your formula. Now, a couple other things, just in case this happens to you. If you ever are in that position where you have a business and own it and whatnot like that, it might be beneficial to you to use some kind of device that keeps your inventory not just at your store, for in case of fire. Okay? Because if all of a sudden the computer, that one computer that you use that has everything logged into it, and it burns up, it might not be very easy to retrieve that. And something that I do even to this day is I use Google Sheets to do my grade book for my base class. So that way I can access it from that computer, I can access it on this computer, or this iPad, I can access it on my phone and show them what their grades are. So just as a maybe word to the wise, it might be beneficial to use something like that, just because. And that way you can access it from other places in case that does happen. So, anyway, the first problem says 2 items are purchased, 100 pack of felt pens at $4 each, and 60 pack of felt pens at $3.80 each. A pack is comprised of 12 felt pens. So it says find the average cost per pack. So first of all, you bought 100 packs at $4 each. How much money is that? $400. Then you bought 60 at $3.80 each. Why do you think the price went down? Do things happen like that? Do the prices go down on certain items? Yeah. Just this morning I heard that the price of gas on average is going to be 32% less than it was last year during the summer. Which means, on average in the country, it's going to be around $2.40. Which ours probably would be the high end of it. But it's going to be around that for the whole summer. That's not bad. Compared to usually last summer it was like $3.40 a gallon. Okay? So, anyway, things do fluctuate based on a couple different things, but that is, that does happen. What is 60 times $3.80?
228.
So if I add those together, what's 400 plus 228?
628.
Okay? You have $628 worth. Okay? And how many packs do you have? 160. So what is $628 divided by 160? $3.93. You average $3.93 per pack. Okay, that's number one. Number 2 says, find the inventory value of 50 packs were on hand. So that means we're going to take our average per pack, which, how much was our average? $3.93. Okay. So once we get our $3.93 and we have 50 on hand, that means I've sold some of them, obviously. What's $3.93 times 50? $196.50. So, if your place of business were to have a fire, for instance, and you needed to inventory everything you had that you sold, you would have to tell them I had $196.50 worth in felt pens. Now, obviously, if you're a paper company, that, or like Staples or Office Max or Office Depot or whatever it is, I don't know which one merged, but all that stuff, that would be accounted for. Okay? They'd have to have some way of knowing how much everything was and what was in there. You have to have a way of knowing what everything is in there. Okay? You can't just go in there and say, oh, I lost my house or I lost my business and I think I had this. An insurance company is going to say, what did you have? Because they obviously have people that are in charge of knowing whether or not you're fraudulent. You know, people try to start their places on fire all the time just because they're upside down and want to get the insurance money. So insurance companies have those people in place to deter from that. Yep, and they work together. So, anyway, the other type of inventory valuation methods are going to be first in, first out, and first in, last out. There's 2 different types. Okay, one of them being produce would be something where we would do something where it's first in, first out. You want to rotate your stock. Okay, felt pens, not necessarily care about that. But milk, I don't think I want to be first in, last out. I don't want to have to sit there and, have milk that's a year old. Okay, but the pens, for instance, would be an example of something that, who cares? Okay, they use the example of gravel. When Gravel Products gets a new load of gravel from a gravel pit, it just goes right on top of the old stuff. They don't rotate. Okay? Tristan, when you get a truck in at Taco Bell, do you rotate your stock so that way the oldest stuff is first?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's first in, first out. Okay, and the way they abbreviate first in, first out, just so that you know, it looks like this. FIFO. Okay? First in, first out. Then the other one, last in, first out, is abbreviated as LIFO. And when they have it on their little thing, they say most businesses, the physical flow of inventory is the first item purchased is the first item sold, or the first in, first out method assumes that the oldest merchandise is sold first. Therefore, the first item purchased is the first item transferred out. For example, they have milk sold at a supermarket as stock first in, first out. As milk is sold, later purchases of milk are added to the back of the shelves. Then their last in, first out assumes most recently purchased merchandise is sold first. The LIFO method assumes that units purchased first are still on hand at the end of the period. The physical flow of stone and a gravel company is last in, first out when new gravel is purchased and placed on top of the old. Okay, and that's what they have for that. So if you look on page 592, it says assume the 100-pack of felt pens purchased at $4 in the first problem were purchased first before the 60-pack of felt pens purchased at $3.80 each. There are 50 packs left. And I want to know what the cost of goods is for those. This is not based on the average. This is based on how much the pack has cost when you buy it. Okay? So when they have number 3 and they want first in, first out, so first of all, you had 100 packs to sell. at $4 each. Then you brought in 60 more, but you have 50 on hand. So of those 60, how many did you sell? If you brought in 60 more and you have 50 left on hand, how many did you sell actually? 10. Right. So if I take 60 minus 50, I get 10 on hand, 10 at the $3.80 mark. So what is 100 times 4? What's 10 times $3.80? 38, right? It just goes one decimal place. What's 400 plus 38? 438. That's how much you sold. Now, for number 3, let me read you the directions again because you'll miss part of it. It says, find the cost of goods sold, which is what we just did, and the value of the inventory. So how many answers do they want? 2. How many do you have left on hand? You have 50. And how much was the price of those? It's not the average. I'll give you a hint. It's either $3.80 or it's $4. $3.80 because you got rid of the 100 first. Okay? So that means since I have 50 left at $3.80, what's 50 times $3.80? 190 even. Okay. So those are my 2 answers for number 3. 438 is how much you sold. 190 is how much you have in inventory. That's number 3. That was based on the first in, first out, which means I sold all 100 of my first felt pens that I brought in, and then I sold 10 additional ones of the 60 that I brought in, since I had 50 left over. Now on number 4, now we're going to say, find the cost of goods sold and value of the inventory at LIFO. So that means last in, first out. You brought in 60 at the end, did you not? And you're going to sell those first. So what's 60 times 3.8? Because that's how much each pack of those cost. How much? Okay. Then, of the 100 that you had brought in the first time, you have 50 left. So how many did you sell if you have 50 left of your original 100? 50. Good job. Yes, you subtract the 2 and you get 50 left over. 50 at $4 a pop. What's 50 times $4? 200. What's 228 plus 200? 428. So you sold $428 worth of pens. Yay, team. You have 50 left on hand, but 50 of which type? The $4 ones or the $3.80 ones? The $4 ones. Because remember, we sold all the $3.80 ones. Because that was the last in stuff. We have $4 ones left over. So, to figure out the value of my inventory, I have 50 left at $4. What's 50 times $4? 200. So, the answer to number 4 is 428 is how much money we sold, and 200 was how much we have in inventory on hand. Those problems are going to be tricky for you. Okay, the LIFO and the FIFO ones are going to be tricky. You have to be very, very careful with the words. So, if you look at number 5 and 6, 7 and 8, just so that you guys know, all of those, actually the same with 9 and 10, every single one of those, if you read the words, it just says average. So that's like we did for 1 and 2. So if you look at part A, for number 5, it says Kitchen World is valuing its inventory on popcorn poppers. On June 1st, Kitchen World had 23 poppers on hand. What's the average cost per popper? What they did, if you look at the chart, which is the same for all the other ones, they took units received of 40, multiplied by 22.10, and that gave me my total cost. That's what they did. They took 40 times 22.1 and got the 884. Does that make sense how they got that number? Then, what they did is they added all those different weeks in there to give me $3,278.60. Then they took the units received and added those together, 148. How do you think you find the average? You take the total cost money and divide it by how many units you received. That should give you part A. Then to get part B, how many did they have on hand? 23. You take your answer for A times by 23. That's the same thing you do for 6. On 7, you're going to have to find the total costs and units received first. Same with 8. Number 9 has the same type of thing. What's the value of the inventory using the average cost method? Same with 10. You're going to have to figure out the total costs. You're going to have to figure out how many units they have. Then on 11 and 12, we start talking about FIFO and LIFO. Last in, first out, and first in, first out. There's one of each of them. Okay? Just so that you are aware of it. So, with that then, it started on page 590. Don't forget there's 1 and 2 way back there. To 593, 1 through 12.